Alrighty, number 7 wants us to solve y equals mx plus b for x. So these are what we call literal equations if you wanted extra practice and we're using another resource. So sometimes we solve equations, but we don't want a value right away. We just want you to literally isolate the variable. In this case, the variable is x. So the first thing I would have to move is b by subtraction. They're not like terms, y and b, so the only thing I can illustrate is that they're on the same side. And then I divide by m on both sides. So I'm left with y minus b over m is equal to x. That's all we can do, folks. So again, it's the ultimate goal is to get the variable by itself, no matter what the scenario is when it says solve. But again, you can't combine things that are not alike. But at least you can recognize that they have moved to the other side of the equation. Number 8 wants us to solve and graph for r. So just like the absolute value, well, no, I'm sorry, similar to an equation, you want to get the variable by itself. And the first thing I could do in this case is distribute -2 to r, or I could divide both sides by -2. Either way works just fine. So let's go ahead with the division. Let's go ahead and divide by -2 on both sides. When, when I divide by -2 on both sides, I'm left with r minus 5. And since I'm dividing by a negative, remember the inequality sign flips to the other direction. And then -14 divided by -2 is a +7. So I'm kind of treating it like I do with the absolute value. And it's fine. It's okay to do it this way. I'm treating the parentheses as an absolute value wall, and so I'm not distributing. I could distribute. Again, that's another way to solve this problem, and you're still going to get the same answer. It's just going to take an extra step that I'm avoiding. So now I need to, lastly, add 5 to both sides. So I would have r is less than or equal to 12. Now on a graph, you would have an closed dot on 12 because the equal to bar is present. And you would shade everything to the left because the inequality is pointing left, as well as it stands for less than, so smaller numbers are on the left of 12. Number 9 is a compound inequality where we have 3 sections, and the goal when you have it set up in 3 sections is to get the variable by itself in the middle. So the first thing I would do here is move 11 from the middle by subtracting 11 from all sides. So -1 minus 11 is -12. Bring down the signs in the middle. And then we have 17 minus 11, which is 6. And lastly, we have to divide everything by 2 to get z by itself. So I would have negative 6 less than z less than or equal to 3. That is my solution set. And now we graph it as well. We had negative 6 and positive 3. Your graphs don't have to be very detailed, but at least label the two numbers that are involved in the situation. Now for negative 6, we're going to have an open dot because the inequality closest to it doesn't have an equal to bar. However, for 3, it does have the equal to bar, so we're going to fill it in. Okay? And then the variable is between the two numbers, so that means we shade everything between the two numbers. So just connect the two dots. That's how you graph this inequality compound where it has 3 sections. Number 10 wants us to solve another compound inequality. It's the OR inequality. So remember, greater means you're going to have, most likely, the arrows pointing opposite directions. So let's go ahead and solve. On the first one, we're going to add 1 to both sides. So bring down 5x less than or equal to, and you get 14. Then you divide both sides by 5. And you would get x is less than or equal to 14 over 5. Just because they say or doesn't mean you get a choice to solve one or the other. You still have to solve both. So on the second one, I first would subtract 35 from both sides. Which would leave me with a negative 2x, because again, that sign travels with the 2, less than a negative 29, sorry, 31. That looks kind of messy. Let me erase. And now we're dividing both sides by negative 2. So again, I'm dividing by a negative. So remember, in inequality land, that means turn the sign the other direction. So it becomes a greater than. And reduce the fraction. It would be a positive 31 over 2. And that or is between. So your solution is x less than 14 over 5 or x greater than 31 over 2. So on a number line, since those are fractions, you might not have a clue as to where they are on the number line. So you might want to look at their decimal equivalent. So 14 divided by 5 is 2.8, and then 31 divided by 2 is 15.5. So I have 2 and 3 is where I can find the 2.8. And then between 15 and 16 is where I can find my 15.5. So for 2.8, it's going to be a closed dot because of the equal to bar. And we're going to shade everything to the left because that's where the inequality sign is pointing. For 15.5, it's going to be an open dot because there is no equal to bar, and you shade everything to the right. Again, because that's simply where the inequality is pointing. It can't get any easier than that, folks. Shade in the direction the sign is pointing. '11. We're going to solve the absolute value inequality now. Again, I cannot distribute 8 into my absolute value bar. So I have to divide both sides by 8 first. So that's another reason I practiced that on an earlier problem where I did have the option to distribute. Just again to show you that I knew a problem like this was coming and there's alternative ways. But on an absolute value, you cannot distribute. Cannot. So bring down my bar. The absolute value of m minus 3 is greater than 2 because 16 divided by 8 is 2. Now, since this is a greater inequality, that's the greater than sign, you use or. You use or. So I have two cases separated by the word or. The first case is all the contents of the box, and then you say less than negative outcome, or the second case is all the contents from the box and then looking exactly the same. So when you write the two cases, you drop the bars, and remember that on an or, you're going to have less than the negative or the opposite outcome, but greater than the original outcome, or whatever the original outcome was in that case. Now solve it. So I would add 3 to both sides here. So m is less than 1, or on the other side, I would also add 3. And you get m is greater than 5. So these are our solutions. Again, or doesn't mean you have a choice. You have to do both. So I need 1 and I need 5. They both get open dots because there's no equal to. On the 1, I'm going to shade to the left because that's where the inequality is pointing. And on the 5, I'm going to shade to the right. So or outside, shade outside, or outside. All right, number 12, we have another absolute value inequality. Thankfully, the absolute value box is already by itself. In this case, it's a less than inequality. So for the less than inequality, we write negative outcome, so -6. Use the same inequality, less than or equal to, contents of the box, 3w minus 5, same inequality, and then the original outcome, 6. So you turn it into a compound inequality that has 3 sections when it's a less than. Again, get the variable alone in the middle. So first I would add 5. -6 plus 5 is -1. 6 plus 5 is 11. Then divide all 3 sections by 3. So my solution set is -1/3 less than or equal to w less than or equal to 11/3. I know that -1/3 is between -1 and 0. Now let's find out where 11/3 is between 11 divided by 3 is 3.67, so it's between 3 and 4. I will have closed dots on both, and you shade in between because that's where the variable is. It's between. All right, we have another inequality. So when we're solving just a basic inequality, let's our goal be get the variable to the left. So in this case, our variable is 0.4y. We're going to subtract 0.4y. Trying to get the variable on the left. So I would have a -0.4y plus 8.1 is greater than 4.1. Now I would subtract 8.1. Leaves me with -0.4y is greater than, I know it's going to be negative, -4.0. Mm, no, -6.0. Yes. Mhm. Let me double check. I'm sorry, I'm a little slow this morning, but I should be right. was right the first time. Oh, goodness. Good thing we can double check. Don't know why I second guessed myself. Alright, so now we're going to divide both sides by negative 0.4. And since I'm dividing by a negative, remember the inequality changes directions. So now negative 4 divided by negative zero point 0.4. Be careful that you make sure you hit all the appropriate signs and symbols, and you get a positive 10. On the graph, we have 10, and then we use an open dot and shade to the left. Let's take a break right here and resume in a moment.